Hello guys and welcome back to another video. This is Dark Times Gamer, and today we're going to be recreating Artemis III in KSP. So, a big thing for KSP right now is that everybody's recreating Artemis II because it just launched. But I figured that I would recreate Artemis III because, well, it's a little more ambitious of a mission. Uh, it's all about rendezvous. Sort of like, I want to say it was Apollo 9. It was the one that docked with the lunar module in orbit. So, yeah, I started off with the Orion spacecraft here, and I got it pretty accurate. The engine was a little more powerful than it should have been, but minor issue. I mean, it still has the same amount of fuel. Similar efficiency, I would guess. Um, a little bit of trouble figuring out how I wanted the ICPS to look, but I ended up settling on a little bit of a different design. Uh, so, yeah, here you can see I'm just kind of trial and error. I got the RCS system on, but then, yeah, I kind of settled on just using a adapter. And then I would do that, which is more accurate to the actual ICPS design. And then I use these, they're modded parts, but they're these, like, hemisphere tanks. They're pretty cool. And it makes the tank look more circular, which is a big part of how you would be able to recreate the ICPS in KSP here. So what I did was I just made a very big fairing that went around the entire thing. I think the fairing's actually in two different pieces on the actual SLS, but I just had one big fairing that goes around the whole thing, all the way up to the launch escape system at the top. So yeah, I got that to work, and then the actual SLS rocket beneath it. The core was pretty simple. I just took a bunch of those orange tanks, and then I used the Mammoth engine since it was the Artemis II equivalent. Then with the SRB, I started off with the Clydesdale, which is the shuttle SRB equivalent, but I didn't really like how big it was. It wasn't big enough, so then I switched to these modded ones that are similar, or it's at least supposed to be an analog for the SLS ones. And then I had trouble finding a nose cone because I don't know, I just didn't find one that looked aesthetically right, but I found those ones and I thought they were good enough. So now moving on to making the Starship HLS. There's kind of a known interior, but it would be very difficult to recreate in KSP. So I just use these station parts pack mod to basically just create a docking port, access tunnel, and then 6 of the Mark II lander cans in the rover form that extend out from a center area that just gives some windows to kind of give off the look of the starship with all the windows. And I just had two levels of the Mark II lander cans stacked on top of each other. And then I just put a bunch of RCS tanks beneath it and fuel as well for the actual engines. And then obviously this doesn't look like a starship, so I just put a fairing over it all to give it sort of the starship look to it, where it does that. But the HLS is a little bit different than a regular starship because it's not going to be the stainless steel look. It's actually going to be more of a like a traditional rocket where it's painted white on the outside. I'm not sure if there's a point to that. I think it may be for like extra radiation protection, or maybe it's just for aesthetics. Most likely it's probably just for aesthetics because I don't think radiation would play that big of a role in it. And yeah, I flipped the lander cans upside down. It wouldn't really have an effect in orbit. It just makes it look better. Like the lander cans are actually curved in. I would move the lander cans in more, but I felt that it would probably cause an issue with the free IVA. So yeah, I pretty much finished up the upper stage. I just had to add on some RCS thrusters to help it with maneuvering. Main deal with that is docking. The engines at the bottom are pretty good with gimbal. Speaking of the engines, here I go. I did a layered approach where I layered the two of those little engine plates on top of each other. One for the outer vacuum engines and for the inner 3 engines. This wasn't as good of a recreation as I would have hoped for it to be. It doesn't have landing legs. But, you know, obviously the main point of this video was to recreate the actual Orion and that portion of it. So, for that, it looks pretty good. And then with the Super Heavy booster, I did not try to make it reusable. I just went for a simple approach. It's really more of a rudimentary docking, like, article for the HLS. Not really a functional lander. But I think it does its job. You know, and then for the booster, it had a very low thrust to weight ratio, so I had to put a lot of engines on it, and I also had to drain a little bit of the fuel, but the upper stage had plenty of delta V's, so it would have been fine. I just had to make sure it had enough thrust to weight ratio to get off the pad. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the Starship HLS. Alright, so here we have the SLS, and well, it should be ready to launch now. Yeah, I did staging right. So we got Jeb, Bill, and Bob. I was gonna try to see if I could fit 4 people in the top one, but yeah, it didn't work out. So, alright, here we go. I'll lower throttle a little bit since we don't need it as much, like maybe 2/3 throttle, just so we can save as much fuel in the main fuel tank as possible. I'll set its point a little bit this way. The general rule of thumb is that by around 10 to 15 kilometers you want to be pointing at 45 degrees, so so yeah, here we go. Seeing as we're about 1/3 the way there, might be about 1/3 the way to 45 degrees. And I'm going to continue with the burn here. Right around here is when we want to start pointing in 45 degrees. Looking good. We still have plenty of fuel in those SRBs. And if I remember right, the core stage takes it to orbit. So, not like the full orbit. I think they use the ICPS for getting them the rest of the way to orbit. But if I remember right, this one should get them. Not sure what that does, so I'm going to put it up here. Okay, and I think the SRBs are nearly out of fuel at this point, so once they're like fully out, I'll ditch them. Alright, I think they're basically out of fuel. Alright, the SRBs are separated, so now it's just the core stage by itself. Does it have... This has thrust to weight ratio, so I don't think we really need to throttle up that much for now. We just want to get a 0-degree inclination orbit. So the core stage should be able to get us most of the way there. The main thing we want is we want to get a higher apoapsis for now. Just get it to 70 kilometers roughly. And then we can worry about actually orbiting. So we're probably good now to start going here more just point to the horizon, and that'll get us basically the rest of the way. So yeah, I use the Mammoth engine, of course, because it's the closest analog to the real SLS engine. Okay, I'll start pointing more this way. So we stop raising our apoapsis and start raising our periapsis more. So we want to be about halfway between prograde and I think it's one of the radial ones. Could also be normal, anti-normal. I forget. I think it's radial though. So yeah, once we're probably good about here, and this will be about it for the core stage. So we're essentially in a stable orbit. Because you're too low when we hit the orbit, we're actually not able to get a full orbit, possibly. Because your periapsis can't be higher than the point you're currently at, right? Think about it that way. So I do have a little orbital station in there, but yeah. We're essentially done with the core stage. I'll just do another burn over here with the core stage to get us to higher apoapsis. And then soon we're going to do our actual burn to get to the moon. So, yeah. Well, actually, no, we're not going to the moon. I forgot. But yeah, I'll just raise my periapsis a little bit so that we're a little bit higher orbit, better for docking, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, we're probably good on the core stage. I don't... So they've said that they might possibly not even use the ICPS. Because all they really need is the core stage, and then a little bit from the vehicle's engines. Because, yeah, the vehicle itself would have enough fuel, like the Orion, would have enough fuel likely to raise the perigee up and also deorbit. So, yeah. I think we'll just ditch the core stage in this low orbit. Alright, so we've decoupled now. So I'll extend Orion's solar panels. Pretty dark here. But yeah, now we have the Orion in orbit. I also got a mod that adds that second moon, in case you're wondering why there's two moons there. So yeah, now I will just have to... I'll warp to about 1 minute before that happens. So then I have enough time to make sure we're in the right orientation for the burn. Make sure the engine's turned on. That's a big deal. So yeah, it should give us enough time, roughly. So okay, we separated that stage, and then, yeah. Let's just activate this engine and do the burn here once the T minus reaches about 6 seconds. See, I tried to make this as stock as possible. I did use a couple mods for these like circular halves. I think these solar panels might be modded. I'm not sure. These could just be the regular ones you get, just what they look like in restock. Because I did use restock, but the actual design of the craft is pretty stock. except for these spherical tanks. But that's more aesthetic anyways. I mean, you could just use a regular tank there again, and yeah. Okay, oh, I missed the burn. Too busy talking. Doesn't really matter. We're still pretty close. Okay, we're gonna circularize. It's close enough to circularization. Yeah. Alright, so Orion is now in orbit. I'll leave the ICPS because we only have 815 meters per second on the upper stage, which might not, or on the Orion, which might not be enough. So just in case, I'll leave the ICPS because it still has plenty of fuel left in all of its tanks. Yep, we still have the Wolfhound engine, which I think is kind of supposed to be like the RL10 equivalent because it has REJ10. It's like RL10. I don't know. Which is the actual engine that is used on the ICPS. So now we are going to go back to the Space Center so we can launch the Starship HLS, which, yeah, is pretty inaccurate because of the way that I had to do the fairing, and I didn't really do the same fairing to the booster, so we'll see how it works. I've done better Starship recreations, but to have the interior I wanted to have, I had to do it a little bit differently. So right towards the bottom. Yeah, I think this is the one I designed for this flight. So we'll have Valentina, so then I can have 4 crew members. So Valentina will pilot this one. And then that'll probably be about it. For the preemptive details, just wait for it to load and we can launch the Starship HLS. I think the docking is at the nose cone of this. One thing that has not really that hasn't been explained well for the HLS is how it's gonna dock. I mean, it's kind of just been assumed that it's gonna dock using a docking port on the top, but I don't really know. The sun's also set here, so it's gonna be a nice nighttime launch. We have a thrust to weight ratio, barely, but we have one. I mean, we're going up, and we've already used quite a bit of our fuel. Or I think, yeah, that was preemptively drained. Clearly, we could use some more powerful engines on the bottom, maybe 33. But, yeah, I mean, we're going okay speed here, but we've already burned through like a quarter of our fuel. But I mean, it's the Starship upper stage we're talking about. It can do a lot of stuff. We could do a refueling mission, but I don't know exactly how that would go. We're just now starting our gravity turn, though, and we're almost halfway through the booster's fuel. Guy might, I don't know. It could make it. It could make it, but it has a very low thrust to weight ratio for the point we're at. Only 1.3, so we could probably use some more engines. I mean, the main point of this is to recreate the actual Artemis, the SLS, and Orion. A lot less about recreating the Starship HLS. But yeah, it's whatever. Alright. We actually are going pretty fast now, but we're gonna stage separate at only like 10,000 meters, which is very low. So yeah, I'm gonna start my gravity turn now. Hopefully the upper stage does better. I mean, I could do that theorized Starship Heavy design with the 2 strap-on super heavy boosters, but that's pretty unethical. I mean, we're going at, yeah, we're in the upper atmosphere at this point. Still going. Slowly burning through the fuel. I mean, okay, the bad thing here is we can't really control this that well. Yeah, I mean, we're essentially in the suborbital. Alright, we have all 6 engines start up, and the upper stage is on its own now. Okay, luckily we do have some RCS to keep us in the right direction. So yeah, we're in a good position. So we'll do a burn up there to get us out to orbit. So we're gonna want to start that here in a few seconds, probably. Right around like 50 seconds. 55 seconds or so. Alright. Start up the engines now. Got our lander cans. Yeah, it's kind of a weird design, but see what, yeah, this kind of see out there. Ooh, what's going on here? It's weird. Okay, we're back to normal. I guess just don't go into crew view, because that made us like spin out for a second. I wonder if it's because it's angled and not pointed straight. I don't know. Yeah. So, I mean, we're powered by 3 of those same RL10 kind of engines. And we also have some limited Delta V here, so... And we should be able to dock with this much, but you never know. Alright, and then I will kind of decrease my throttle here so we can fine-tune it to about here. That's probably good. And turn off RCS for now. Jeez, we got a lot of fuel tanks there. And I will time warp so we can get a good view of this during the daytime. If it doesn't crash. Ooh, okay, yeah, it works. Alright. So now I'm going to pull out MacJeb because I'm not that good at doing this. So I'm going to set my target to be that. And then I will rendezvous autopilot. And engage. Alright, so now we're getting towards our actual burn here to get us there. So, oh yeah, we're like, that'll be a really close intersect. Alright, try to see if we can get into position using our RCS. This. About 2 minutes out from the burn, and this will get us to a transfer to get to Artemis III. Alright, so about 20 seconds out now. I'm going to want to start the burn here in 2, 1, start. Alright. And we want to get it down to like 0. Alright. So the next thing we're going to do is once we meet up with the Artemis II, we're going to slow down significantly. That'll make sure that we're, at a good speed to dock with it. because you want your orbits to match, but you also want to be in the same position in your orbit. So you use a transfer window like this, so you can speed up towards it, and then you slow down to match orbits once you're nearby it. And then you want your relative speed to be 0. And then once your relative speed is 0, then you're good. I'd say from here I could probably do the rest of this, but I'll let MacJeb do it for now. So our relative speed with our target is slowing down, which is a good sign. But yeah, it probably reaches a point where it has like 100 meters per second speed, and then that's like the lowest it gets, so then we'd want to decrease that. So then we have the same orbit, and then we just have to ever so slightly point ourselves towards Artemis II, and then we could both use our RCS to point towards each other. It's probably about 20 times easier to dock with another manned craft. So yeah, Valentina's just on this one, I guess, to account for the fact that there's normally 4 passengers on the Artemis, but I can only fit 3 because using the Apollo command pod. So yeah, I'll time warp here. Alright, so now that we're about 2 minutes out, we should be actually able to see, or at least try to see it, should be ahead of us that way. Can't really see it. Well, actually, it would be like behind us. I can't really see it yet. It's probably separation. Separation's decreasing pretty rapidly. I'll get the flight engineer info on screen so I can better see relative velocity and things like that. So we're about a minute out now from the burn, and I'm gonna speed up time slightly just so we can get closer quicker. And uh-oh. Okay. As you can see, we're probably pretty close to it. Alright, and I'll disengage autopilot. And we can point towards target. Alright, so we're now pointing towards the target. So now I'm going to switch to the target, and we're also going to point towards the HLS. And pretty soon we should be ready to dock. So we should have a camera here. Yeah. So I'm going to try to dock using this camera. So we're going to try to get closer. So 1 meters per second is a pretty good speed. We're not pointed perfectly straight at it, so try to increase our speed slightly. Speed up the coast a little bit here. Sadly, the sun is blocking our view. Can't really see that well. Alright, should be close. Alright. Alright, and we have docked with the HLS now. So now we can transfer our crew. I believe this should work. I'm gonna free IVA into Starship. Alright, here we are. You see the crew transfer tunnel here. And then we're at this little area. And I'll open up all the hatches so we have a nice way to get we're now inside of this area. We can see out into space from here, so I'd call that a success there. If we keep going, takes us over here, which I forget no, it's the second level of those, and then the hatch is blocked. Alright, I'm gonna go sit in one of these seats. And yeah, I don't think there's any kind of like airlock or anything. It's just pretty basic interior. Yeah, it's mostly just these little guys there. But it's like a mock-up HLS. It's not the full thing. So I'll go ahead and send Jebediah back to over, not here. He has to go down. Then we can get back into our seat. And I will transfer some fuel. Because, okay, so for our fuel tank, will not be transferred. So we're going to fill up that main fuel tank there at the bottom. And that should be able to get the Starship home. And then we should have enough fuel to get ourselves home. We're in a fairly low orbit, so it should be fairly easy. Alright, so now I'm going to those guys be open, and now we can undock. So now we're going to point retrograde, and we're going to separate from the ICPS. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, there we go. Had a bit of a Kraken attack there, but we're looking okay. Alright, so we're pointing retrograde. So now we're going to deorbit the Orion. Periapsis is lowering. Try to land more like towards one of these coasts. Hopefully that's coast. If not, doesn't really matter that much. Now we are just this. Do we not have any? Still a monoprop. Alright, now that we're getting close, let this happen. So we're getting close to re-entry here, going pretty fast. Alright, we got all 4 of our parachutes now deployed. So we are actually going to have a splashdown. We're at our last 200 meters here before splashdown. And we have splashdown of all 3 of our crew members here. They've splashed down successfully.